So you've got to be careful when you're talking about those kind of things. You've got to have some boundaries on this to say, within the confines of this court's business and what impacts the business of this court, what are the rules that we want to have in the way that they conduct behavior? And I have gone, this represents some of the rules of decorum from the different commissioners' courts in Texas. Not everybody has theirs online. I was surprised to find that out, but they don't. And not everyone even has rules of decorum. Some people that I talked to said, oh, we've never needed anything like that. Well, obviously, either their court is conducting a little bit differently, they don't have public participation, or people are not interested. I don't know what the situation may be.
They're not.
But they all have some type of language exactly like what are in the existing rules of decorum for this court. They all talk about publicly demeaning people. And understand, you're saying it, and you're saying it related to one person on the court. But it could be Commissioner Nix, it could be Commissioner Phillips, it could be Commissioner Ward. Anybody else could be called to task by the public. And the question is, do we want to, and I say the word protect, but not just protect that individual from some of the language that might be used, but protect those people who are in the court from the type of language that might be used that may not be beneficial to the working of the court and be beneficial to the resolution of the issue. Just because you can call somebody a name and use any type of language or any vulgarity or anything that you want to say, it doesn't mean that it's right in certain situations. It just doesn't.
Can I speak?
Absolutely.
Richard, please. Unfortunately, passing a law doesn't make the law correct or right. I mean, there was a law at one time allowing slavery. That didn't make it right. Okay, so just because the Texas legislature has passed a law about how commissioners' courts are to be conducted, doesn't necessarily make it right. I mean, I know you know, so what I'm trying to say is, I think this whole committee idea came about because of the behavior of one person. That's how this all came about, was the behavior, the reaction to it, the comments about it, et cetera, et cetera. So while I applaud what we're trying to do here to facilitate access to the court, public speaking, how long, timer, that whole thing, it still, as Ms. Moncrief said, does not address the issue. And I've already said, I know there's only two, election time or the petition process. However, I'm all for, I've already stated on the record in another meeting, I'm for civility and decorum. However, I get subjected to hear things all the time that I don't like hearing. It doesn't mean I can shut that down just because I don't like it. And to say that, with all due respect, people in the courtroom may hear things that they don't like, that's too bad. I mean, you don't want that, and I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying our ears hear things all the time that we don't like, we don't agree with, but we cannot stifle that, I don't believe. I do think the court needs to tend to their business and get their business taken care of, and as we've talked about, putting at the end of the meeting public comment to talk about anything, knowing that the commissioners cannot respond to it if it's not on the agenda. I'm totally in favor of that idea, and as long as it lets people say what they want to say. Otherwise, for example, what you've done there, I believe, you've removed sentence number 2, but you've replaced it with a lot of verbiage that is subjective, that somebody's going to decide what is inappropriate, what is I can't remember all the different
Yeah, so-
adjectives.
Yeah, so sentence number 3 actually already exists. I added, so profane, insulting, threatening language already exists. Racial epithets, gender slurs, ethnic slurs, that already exist in the current document today as we reviewed before. What I add was belittling, for example. Again, and I hate to use this as an example, but I am going to use it as an example. So I apologize in advance. But I felt as though when Mr. Brewer kept saying people don't, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. I believe people will get it. I can't sit here and make a statement that says the general public doesn't have the wherewithal to go X, Y, and Z and click on the document and click on the form to get their information. To me, if I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm trying to get you to understand where I'm coming from, and I'm saying, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you're just not as where I am. How am I going to then engage and say, well, I can receive your information and take it and leave the fact that you're basically saying that I'm less than whatever. And so I'm bringing that to your attention because that type of language, when you were addressing someone, like the commissioner's court, for all intents and purposes, is a body that is elected, right? And there's a certain decorum or manner in which you address that body when they're sitting in that official capacity, whether you know them personally or whether you grew up with them as friends. And all I'm saying is when we reduce ourselves to tell an individual, and I use this as an example because it happened in court, when the individual said, you all are peons, okay? So, again, could the individual say that? Absolutely. But how does that allow us to work more effectively together and communicate that my real interest is in bettering the behavior and the engagement between myself and the court? I would submit to you that it doesn't, that in no shape, form, or fashion allowed any member to say, now we can better engage with the court. That facilitates a process of communication. In all honesty, it probably inhibited, because the majority of people who felt they were being addressed are going to be turned off by you refusing to acknowledge that I have value. So again, it has to be a balance. And I'm not saying that we're going to get everything right here today, but the balance is, how do I engage and communicate my concerns, passionate or dispassionate, to the body in a way that reflects the decorum of the meeting, right? So you can go to a judicial court today. You can go to Tyler PD, or you probably go to the Sheriff's Department, and you can go in there and you can say a lot of different things, but you can take it to a level where it's just not going to be you and I talking anymore. And all I'm saying is that happens here in Commissioner's Court. You can take it